Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Rangana. Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Rangana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari. Radha Madhava Ki. Thank you to the instrument players. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So who knows what we're reading today? Intro, right? So it's actually very long, so we're not going to read the entire introduction. But before we begin, I wanted to, it's kind of an exciting moment because we're setting the intention for the full year of studying Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So yesterday is a preface, today introduction. And so I wanted to first ask you to reflect on what is Srimad Bhagavatam to you in your life? Like what role does Srimad Bhagavatam play in your life? So I'd like to invite you, you can even close your eyes if you need, and just take a moment to think about that. And it's okay if it's not, it can be a basic answer. It doesn't have to be so profound. Some of us may feel like it plays more of a role than others, but just to be authentic and honest, like how do you feel about Srimad Bhagavatam in your life right now? Okay, so I'd like to just quickly go around the room and just like one sentence, just share something. Maybe Shruti can start.
The consistent Bhagavatam in my life gives me more strength.
Nice, yeah. So consistent Bhagavatam in your life. Really nice.
There have been moments in my life where the Bhagavatam felt like my only solace, and moments where it felt like it was just a textbook that I'm reading. And so right now I'm in between that, I think.
Nice, yeah. Very thoughtful answer.
I love how it prompts speakers to share realizations, and I love the classes, and they always seem relevant to exactly where I'm at. Like I'll be like, oh, I just talked about that yesterday, and now the speaker's mentioning it. So over the time that I've studied it, I've come to see that it's a little magical.
Nice, yeah. Let's go. Do you have my phone? Okay, I don't think that microphone's working. Roadmap to success, right? You said? Yeah, that's really nice. And
I think for me, main source of like spiritual topics to keep my mind engaged.
nice. Okay. So the question is, if you didn't hear the question is, what is Srimad Bhagavatam's role in your life right now? Just one sentence. Yeah.
A shot of sobriety and something that helps me get grounded.
Nice. Shot of sobriety. Is that what you said? Shot of sobriety. Yeah. Very poetic. Yeah, it's very true, right? The Bhagavatam can make us feel sober about life.
I feel like I found a holy scripture that I can read for the rest of my life.
Nice. Yeah, that reminds me that in spiritual life things don't get dull, right? They stay fresh.
It's like an extremely bright sun. In times of great darkness and fog, it makes everything crystal clear.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, in the back. Is the microphone on?
I think that Srimad Bhagavatam gives you like an idea for where everything came from.
Nice. So the impromptu question for you is, what is Srimad Bhagavatam's role in your life? Or we can come back to you if you need a minute. Yeah, go in the back then. I think you have to pass the mic back though. Oh, they have one. Okay.
So currently, the role of the Bhagavatam, for me right now, it's just a book because I'm feeling very disconnected from it because I haven't had regular Bhagavatam classes in quite a while. So it's really nice to get back into that routine.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that honest answer. It's very true that when we get disconnected for a while from Bhagavatam, it can kind of shift from feeling like you said, that magical, like personal thing to just, okay, here's the scripture that we're studying. So it's just that regulated practice of Bhagavatam is what creates that relationship, right? Yeah.
Never ending adventures of lessons that are very applicable to ways of living.
Very nice. Yeah. Okay.
I think the role that Srimad Bhagavatam is playing in my life at this moment is kind of like it's like a reflection, but I'm almost looking into the spiritual world, and I'm getting like what life is really supposed to be like, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So like a goal, like this is how life should really be. So something to aspire for. Can we get a microphone into this room?
Thank you. Well, for me, I think Bhagavatam is it's like a window into the spiritual world and into the lives of great devotees. Just like a window, every morning we come to class. The morning sun rises and it's very bright, and when you wake up, you don't want to look at the sun, but still you have to wake up.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So nice analogy, like a window into the spiritual world and into the lives of devotees. I like all these poetic answers.
Mine's similar to something Nate said. It's alive. You can open it anywhere and you'll find something that's going on that relates to something that's going on in your life right then.
Yeah.
It's always like that.
Right. Yes. So these, I'll share, for me personally, right now in my life, Srimad Bhagavatam is a shelter because I am reading the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj to Lord Nrsingadev. And I've been reading them before I go to sleep at night. And it's just very nice meditation on that loving connection that the devotee has with Krishna and how Nrsingadev shelters Prahlad, So it feels very comforting. I wanted to just add that these things that we all shared just now, they're like a sentence, right? But they're very profound, what each one of you said. And when we're out and about, like sharing Krishna with others, say we had an opportunity to say, oh, the Bhagavatam, and then you have one sentence to describe the Bhagavatam, right? You could extract something from what you said to describe the Bhagavatam, because it's a realized, like, personal relationship that you're experiencing with Bhagavatam. So there is, in this vein, I wanted to share that my father, way back, he came up with this phrase to describe, like, let's say you're on the street and you want to distribute Bhagavatam. So you could say, Srimad Bhagavatam, the book of happy endings. And I thought that was very nice, like, it's short, sweet, and it's like, yeah, this is actual happy endings, right? That because they're happy in the ultimate spiritual sense. Not every single person in the Bhagavatam not every character that appears in the Bhagavatam has a happy ending. However, materially, however, spiritually, there's this happy ending to everything. So yeah, we can reflect on, like, what's I think it's called a quip, like a short phrase that you would say about the Bhagavatam. So let's begin. Before we begin, I want to pull up that second link that I sent you, and I want to show you what Sanatana Goswami prayed to the Bhagavatam. It's very beautiful prayers. Yeah, it might be tricky, so I might have to. Can you just go back and forth a little, like? Oh, it worked. Okay, great. I think so. Can you scroll up and see if there's a name to it? Yeah, this one doesn't have any money, but yes, I believe so. Okay, so Srila Sanatana Goswami wrote these 4 verses. So let's read the English. So let's have a reader. Maybe Nate, you can start off. There's the microphone. Oh, that one's not working.
O Srimad Bhagavatam, O nectar churned from the ocean of all Vedic scriptures, you are the most prominent transcendental fruit of all the Vedas, and are enriched with the jewels of all philosophical conclusions. You grant spiritual vision to all people of the world, and are the very life breath of the Vaishnava devotees. O Lord, you are the sun which has arisen to dispel the darkness of Kali Yuga. Actually, you are Lord Krishna, who has returned among us. Wow.
Okay, wait, go back up for a second. So remember we were talking about, like, little phrases you could say to describe the Bhagavatam? So you could say, Srimad Bhagavatam, nectar churned from the ocean of the Vedic scriptures. Very poetic, right? And then another one is, Srimad Bhagavatam grants spiritual vision to all people of the world. That's very nice, very relatable. The first one might not be as relatable in contemporary culture, but and then the life breath of the Vaishnava devotees. What a nice experience that Sanatana Goswami is having with the Bhagavatam that he's sharing with us. Okay, let's go down.
Srimad Bhagavatam, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. By your recitation, one attains transcendental bliss, because your syllables shower down pure love of God. You are to be served by everyone always, for you are an incarnation of Lord Krishna.
Yeah, so the second time he mentions that Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna. So pretty special. Okay, third verse.
O Srimad Bhagavatam, O my only friend, companion, and teacher, O my great wealth and deliverer, O my good fortune and bliss, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
So that one I really, really liked. He's calling Srimad Bhagavatam his friend. Amazing. His friend, his companion, and his teacher. So again, like we talked about earlier, it becomes alive to one who approaches it in that way. It becomes a friend, a dear friend. And if you think about, I don't know if you've ever done this thought experiment, but I used to do this a lot. What would you take with you if you were suddenly left on an island somewhere, right? Like what book would you take or whatever? And we can think about that. Like Srimad Bhagavatam would be a solace, like our shelter. Okay, go down. The last verse.
O Srimad Bhagavatam, O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O uplifter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Accompanied by pure love of Krishna, please manifest yourself in my heart and throat.
Nice, right? Yeah.
Is this considered smriti?
This prayer? I think so. Don't know. Prayer from a devotee to Krishna. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know the answers to that question. You would say yes? Yeah. Okay, you'd say yes, Martin. Okay. So you can see what happens when we develop a relationship with the Bhagavatam. It becomes alive, and we start to this prayer of please never leave me, right? Like I'm so attached to Bhagavatam. Let me never let this relationship never end. And some of you mentioned that magical kind of experience of reading Bhagavatam, opening it up. I'm sure we all have had that, or we're going to have it. It happens to everyone. You're going through something difficult in life. You're going through something, thank you, something difficult, and then you go, okay, I really need this. I'm just going through something difficult in life. You open it up, I need the shelter of Bhagavatam. And then you'll read something that's totally relevant and relatable. Several of you mentioned that. So that's because Krishna, it's non-different from Krishna. And Krishna is alive, obviously. And Krishna is reciprocating with what's happening for each one of us. It's a very personal relationship. So so I kind of wanted to emphasize this point as we begin the study of Bhagavatam. So it feels less just robotic, like we're just studying a book, and more like, let me see what I can do this coming semester to really develop a relationship with Srimad Bhagavatam. Let me come to the classes feeling like, or asking the question of, how can I connect more? How can I feel Krishna through Bhagavatam, making it alive for us? It actually helps a lot too when we're feeling tired to do that exercise, because it's natural to get sleepy when we're reading and like theoretical things and stuff. And one other thing I want to mention is there are parts of Bhagavatam that might be more challenging for us than other parts, right? Like there's going to be times when we're reading Bhagavatam, certain things that are written in there, or certain passages or sections in the 5th canto where it feels dull or whatever, right? However, to remember that the entirety of the Srimad Bhagavatam is a dear friend to us and is Krishna, non-different from Krishna. And therefore, Krishna can help us with those passages as well, and those parts of it. And to find, if we're having difficulty with some aspects of Srimad Bhagavatam, we can focus on some aspect of Srimad Bhagavatam that we really connect with. Just like Krishna makes himself available to so many different people in this world in different ways, even in different religious paths and so on. So there's Krishna, there's Bhagavatam for everyone, right? So you could say, well, I don't relate to this part, but I do really relate to the story of Prahlad Maharaj and Shringadev, Dhruva, whatever, some section, or one purport, or one verse. And that's actually enough, because Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that even one word of the Bhagavatam, or one verse, he said one verse of the Bhagavatam can be talked about for like a full month, right? So there's so much depth in there.
I think there's actually a verse in this, or a part of a verse in this piece by Sanatana Goswami, where it says that every syllable pours down a flood of prema. But it seems like it was translated a little bit different here. Every syllable contains a flood of prema.
Nice. I almost wonder if there's more verses, because it seemed shorter than I remember.
There's 5.
Yeah, it's missing one as well. This is only 4. So
I think that's the one, maybe.
Yeah, very deep.
Every syllable pours down a flood of prema. And what I often like to do is, remind myself that since it's non-different from Krishna, and in fact, the Bhagavatam itself says that spending time hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam has the same benefit of being in actually the presence of the Lord's original form. And to remember that, and to recognize that no matter whether I'm understanding it or not, it's Krishna speaking.
Yeah.
And just to keep that in mind so that realize that every single syllable, whether I understand it or not, is transforming my heart and my mind.
Very nice. Yeah. That reminds me of an incident where His Holiness Indradyumna Swami, way back before he was a Swami, he was a newer devotee. He was at a class Prabhupada was giving in India, and Prabhupada was speaking in Hindi. And it was very hot out. It was outdoors, hot event. A lot of devotees were kind of nodding off because they didn't speak Hindi. And so became, they were just hearing the sounds. And so Indradyumna Swami nodded off. And suddenly he heard Prabhupada's words, like, waking him up. Like, why are you sleeping while your spiritual master is speaking? Something like that, something heavy, right? And spiritual master can be cutting. And so he woke up with a start, and Prabhupada said, it doesn't matter whether you understand. Oh, because then Indradyumna Swami said, oh, I don't speak Hindi, or something to that effect, like I don't understand. And he said, it doesn't matter whether you understand the meaning of the words or not. It's the sound purification coming from the great devotee. Yeah, and so then Indradyumna Swami, he's often quoted this story. He said, I never again fell asleep in a Bhagavatam class. So that's a helpful reminder when we're just to remember that the syllables can purify us, even if we're not understanding everything. So let's read the first paragraph of the introduction. Okay, so the conception of God and the conception of absolute truth are not on the same level. Interesting, right? So you have to think twice. Wait, it sounds like the same thing, but it's not. Okay. The Srimad Bhagavatam hits on the target of the absolute truth. The conception of God indicates the controller, whereas the conception of the absolute truth indicates the summum bonum, or the ultimate source of all energies. There's no difference. If you want to sound erudite on campus, you can say the word summum bonum. Probably Latin, right? There's no difference of opinion about the personal feature of God as the controller, because a controller cannot be impersonal. Of course, modern government, especially democratic government, is impersonal to some extent. But ultimately, the chief executive head is a person. And the impersonal feature of government is subordinate to the personal feature. So without a doubt, whenever we refer to control over others, we must admit the existence of a personal feature. Because there are different controllers for different managerial positions, there may be many small gods, and note the small g here, right? According to the Bhagavad Gita, any controller who has some specific extraordinary power is called a vibhutimat sattva, or a controller empowered by the Lord. There are many vibhutimat sattvas, controllers, or gods with various specific powers, but the absolute truth is one without a second. That means there's no one else that could ever take that spot. That spot is singular, right? The absolute truth, one. This Srimad Bhagavatam designates the absolute truth, or the summum bonum, as the param satyam. And let's do the second paragraph as well. So, Jonathan, would you like to read it?
The author of Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Vyasadeva, first offers his respectful obeisances unto the Paramasatma, the absolute truth. And because the Paramasatma is the ultimate source of all energies, the Paramasatma is the supreme person. The gods or the controllers are undoubtedly persons, but the Paramasatma, from whom God derives powers or control, is the supreme person.
Just pause for a moment. So param satyam, right? So what does that mean literally? What is param? Absolute, right? Or supreme, paramatma, right? The supreme super, or the super soul, Prabhupada translate as supreme soul, param, the supreme absolute, and then satyam, truth, right? So that's how it's translated to absolute truth. Okay, please continue.
The Sanskrit word is vara, controller, conveys the import of God, but the supreme person is called Paramasarva.
Parameshvara.
Oh, Parameshvara, or the Supreme Isvara.
So again, here it's param, right? Param, supreme, and it's connected to the word Ishvara, which just means controller. So then when we put those two words together, it becomes Parameshvara, the supreme controller. So it's very neat how Sanskrit works in that way. Okay, please continue.
The Supreme Person, or Parameshvara, is the Supreme Conscious Personality. And because he does not derive any power from any other source, he is supremely independent. In the Vedic literature, Brahma is described as the supreme god or the head of all other gods like Indra, Chandra, and Varuna. But the Srimad Bhagavatam confirms that even Brahma is not independent as far as his power and knowledge are concerned. He received knowledge in the form of the Vedas from the Supreme Person, who resides within the heart of every living being. That Supreme Personality knows everything directly and indirectly. Individual, infinitesimal persons who are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality may know directly and indirectly everything about their bodies or external features, but the Supreme Personality knows everything about both his external and internal features.
So that's a very interesting point at the end there, that we can know, let's say we really study up on the body and we can really understand how the body works, but it's limited, our knowledge. Whereas the Supreme Person, the absolute truth, Parameshvara, Supreme Controller, he understands not only all the living entities, but also himself in full, everything, every aspect. So what anything come up for you in those two paragraphs that you remember or that strikes you? What's your takeaway? We have the two phrases, Paramatma, Parameshvara, Supreme Absolute, or Absolute Truth, and Supreme Controller, right? Those are two ways of describing God, the Supreme Person, or Krishna. Yes.
So sometimes, he's referring to like demigods here. No demigods are as powerful, and I realized that that's preaching both to Westerners and to like Hindus, because Westerners often like are like I get on campus sometimes people are like, oh, you guys are Hindu or something, and they like but right away Prabhupada's dispelling that, like, no, we're monotheistic, and to the and it's also an elaboration for people who are Hindu to know, like, yeah, even Brahma is dependent on Krishna.
Yeah, you're right. Right from the beginning, Prabhupada makes that point clear. And throughout the entire Bhagavatam, Prabhupada keeps reminding us of Krishna being the Supreme Person, and then he has the little lower capital G gods underneath serving him. So Prabhupada really helped that distinction, like from the confusion of Hinduism, where it's like, oh, everyone's just on the same altar, right? It's all kind of one. Prabhupada said, no, it's not one. It's simultaneously one and different, and he really stressed that point over and over. Yes, Prabhu.
So he also brings out of this, I think, further on in the introduction, he's making also a contrast between the common conception of God that people have, which could be, God out there somewhere, not necessarily involved in our lives, to everything is God. And there's so many conceptions, but when we talk about Parameshwara and the Param Satyam, we're talking about something very specific, and the Bhagavatam is going to lay that out for us. He asks the question, he says, people think that God is great, but they don't know how great he actually is. Bhagavatam tells us very specifically, so that we come to realize Achintya Beta Beta Tattva, that we're actually swimming in a sea of Krishna. We're breathing in Krishna. We got Krishna energy flowing through our veins.
Nice. Yeah. So right from the start, again, Prabhupada makes it very clear that there's a personal Supreme Person. Krishna is a person. And at the same time, Krishna has his energies. Like you said, we're swimming in that, right? So everything, Krishna is everything, and yet he retains his personhood. So again, he's right from the start, making sure that people don't get confused, that there's, oh, God is just a one light, right? That's a common thing in the West. Like, oh, we're all one, it's kind of all merged. Yeah.
I have a question. In the beginning of the this section in the introduction, was it saying that there's a difference between the Parameshvara and the Parasatyam, and then it explained why they're the same thing? Is that what's happening in these paragraphs that we read?
Not exactly. They're just two different ways of describing the Supreme Person. So two different Sanskrit words, but they're the same concept, that there's one absolute truth, and the one absolute truth is the Supreme Controller. So it's just another descriptor for the same Supreme Person, Krishna, right? But the contrast was given to impersonal features, and the contrast was given to smaller gods with the lower G, right? So Krishna is it's Prabhupada's setting Krishna apart. Here's the Supreme Person. Yeah. So we have no confusion, right? And we're so grateful to Prabhupada because he did that throughout the whole Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita everywhere. He's always reminding us. Sometimes people would complain about that, like philosophers. They would say, Prabhupada's always translating verses or having the word Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's always like repeating that, even though it's not necessarily right in the Sanskrit sometimes. Because Prabhupada was so emphatic that we have to not forget that Krishna is a supreme person. He's supreme and he's a person, right? So we'll skip ahead a little, and I want to mention that those of you who've read the introduction, you know that there's a huge chunk of it that is it's entitled A Short Sketch of the Life and Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. And we're not going to read that, but that's very interesting, right? That there's a big bulk of this introduction, Prabhupada's describing the life of Lord Chaitanya. So why do you think that is? Why did Prabhupada why is Lord Chaitanya the bulk of the introduction?
Just my guess is that that's one of Srila Prabhupada's teachers, and he's a direct manifestation of Krishna.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He is the Satyam, the Param Satyam. He is the Param Eshvara, self-same. He's Krishna himself in the form of Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. He's a recent incarnation, only 500 something years. Can you pull up that picture? So during the time of when Lord Chaitanya was in India, which famous explorer was coming to? Who knows the name of the famous explorer that was trying to discover? Yeah. So he was going, actually there were several, but Columbus is the one I'm thinking of, because at the time, it's just kind of interesting for us historically because we're in America, and around the time that Lord Chaitanya was having his pastimes in India, Columbus was sailing west, actually trying to get to that land, trying to discover that land, and then ended up finding America, North America, and so on. So that was happening at the same time. And so I just wanted to show you this. You've probably seen this picture, but, and there's some debate about whether this is a really accurate portrait or not, but there is, this has come up recently as possibly being the portrait that King Prataparudra had one of his artists draw of Lord Chaitanya, right? It was discovered kind of recently. It's an old painting. And so I just wanted to pull that up. Yes, please. Do you need a microphone? We need a microphone.
Bhakti Maharaj was talking about this topic about Columbus, and he said that his father, in fact, had the writings from his son, what he was describing. There is this golden figure, and he resides in a place where sky meets the earth. He was referring to Navadvip. So actually, Columbus was in search of that golden figure in place in Amadou.
Nice. Yeah, I had heard some things. I didn't know what the source was for that, but yeah, that's really amazing. So there was, I guess you could say, a rumor or something about like, oh, there's this great golden being, right? So that's interesting. I didn't realize that was connected with Columbus. I know there was a some devotees in Portugal had discovered something about, memoir of like some traveler way back who saw the party, I think Sankirtan party of Lord Chaitanya, and was describing like they were very tall. Lord Chaitanya was very tall, so very tall. He called him a golden giant. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, he was very tall. And in a country where probably in Bengal, people are not very tall usually. So like Lord Chaitanya must have really kind of stood out, it's very beautiful. So, and then just a question that Brahmatirtha Prabhu likes to ask that you might, if you've heard it, don't answer, but do you know why, this is like a trick question, do you know why Lord Chaitanya never had a chili pepper? Okay, if you know, you can answer too.
You have any chili peppers there?
Yeah, because chili peppers hadn't yet been imported to that part of the world. So they actually originally came from the Western Hemisphere, like South America and so on. But and then the Portuguese and Spanish brought them over to India, but a little bit later. So it's just a kind of a trick question that Brahmatirtha Prabhu likes to ask. So let's see what Prabhupada says about why he spent so much time talking about Lord Chaitanya in the introduction. He says, and this is the next paragraph after the next paragraph, so 2 paragraphs. It starts with, in the modern age. Yeah, there we go. So in the modern age, Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu preached the Srimad Bhagavatam by practical demonstration. It's easier to penetrate into the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam through the medium of Sri Chaitanya's causeless mercy. Therefore, a short sketch of his life and precepts is inserted herein to help the reader understand the real merit of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, by practical demonstration. So sometimes the Bhagavatam can feel very lofty, like there's pastimes in here that can feel hard to understand or relate to because they're so different from our lived experience. But when we study the life of Lord Chaitanya, it feels a little more relatable. I mean, yes, it was 500 plus years ago, but it was still, it was in Kali Yuga, relatively modern times. And we can relate to that. The devotees, the pastimes, their interactions. We can see similarities in our interactions with devotees. We find some common ground. So, and then he says it's easier to penetrate into Bhagavatam by the Lord Chaitanya's mercy. So that's another reason that we, before beginning a big endeavor like studying scripture, we get the mercy of devotees. And Lord Chaitanya is giving that. He's Krishna and he's the greatest devotee of Krishna. So it's imperative that one learn the Srimad Bhagavatam from the person Bhagavatam. See, again, the person Bhagavatam is one whose very life is Srimad Bhagavatam in practice. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the absolute personality of Godhead, he is both Bhagavan and Bhagavatam in person and in sound. So Bhagavan means God. Bhagavatam, he's saying it's the person God, right? The person Bhagavat. So, let me just see where that was. From the person Bhagavatam, yeah. Therefore, his process of approaching Srimad Bhagavatam is practical for all people of the world. It was his wish that the Srimad Bhagavatam be preached in every nook and corner of the world by those who happen to take their birth in India. So if you happen to take birth in India and you know about this great science, then it's imperative, it's like your duty, right, to go and share that with others. So if you know about this great golden giant, you better tell people to come and see, right? So that idea. Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, of whom we have preliminary information from the text of the Bhagavad Gita. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that anyone, regardless of what he is, who is well versed in the science of Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, can become an authorized preacher or preceptor in the science of Krishna. Wow, how magnanimous. And here, right from the start, we see this generous mood of the Sankirtan movement and of Prabhupada's mood, right? We always hear that Prabhupada said, anyone who really learns the science can become a teacher in this tradition, right? guru. So here he's saying it right here. Anyone who's well versed in the science of Krishna through these literatures can become an authorized preacher or preceptor in the science of Krishna. There is a need for the science of Krishna in human society for the good of all suffering humanity of the world. And we simply request the leaders of all nations to pick up this science of Krishna for their own good, for the good of society, and for the good of all the world's people. So that's a really nice phrase. Like that in itself, that quote is the mission of the movement, right? Prabhupada's movement of ISKCON. So, and Lord Chaitanya's movement as well. Shri Gauri Thai Ki Jai. Prabhupada is really good at creating this universality, right? He always emphasized that United Nations. The supreme United Nations is that every nation comes together and is serving this higher purpose of worshiping Supreme Person, Krishna. So then at the very end, so we won't read the sketch, but I would highly recommend if you have some leisure time today or over the weekend, because we have time before Monday's Bhagavatam class. But if you really feel like, okay, I want to get the semester off to a good start, I want to read about Lord Chaitanya to get his blessings, so then I can begin my Bhagavatam study. You can see it's many pages long. And then at the end, I want to read what Prabhupada says at the end of the introduction. Okay, so it begins with the Lord left. It's number 2. Yeah. So the Lord left only 8 shlokas of his instructions in writing. They are known as the Shikshashtaka. All other literatures of his divine cult were extensively written by the Lord's principal followers, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan and their followers. The cult of Chaitanya philosophy is richer than any other, and it is admitted to be the living religion of the day with the potency for spreading as Vishvadharma or universal religion. We are glad that the matter has been taken up by some enthusiastic sages like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj and his disciples. Enthusiastic sages. So, and he's saying Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples, including himself, right? Prabhupada is definitely an enthusiastic sage. We shall eagerly wait for the happy days of Bhagavat Dharma or Prema Dharma, inaugurated by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So what is that, Bhagavat Dharma? Supreme religion, supreme purpose, right? Supreme duty, yeah. Or Prema Dharma, what is that? Yeah, it's Dharma is even more than duty. It's like purpose, meaning, essence, right? So essence of love, like this practice of Krishna consciousness. It's ultimately a loving practice, and the purpose is to develop our love for Krishna. So, yeah, so we can pray to Lord Chaitanya for his mercy in helping us approach the Srimad Bhagavatam. And also Prabhupada, we can pray to Prabhupada to help us, especially if you're having difficulty. I did this one, I want to share this because there was a time when I struggled a lot with certain things that Prabhupada had written in the Srimad Bhagavatam and his purports. And so there was, I think it was maybe 2013, I was in Vrindavan for an extended period of time, and I got to spend a lot of time in Prabhupada's room, where his room there, where he actually passed away right at the end of his life. So I was reading a part of the Bhagavatam that was particularly challenging for me. It was like the 9th canto has a lot in it. That's a lot of, for me, it was just some challenging things. So things I couldn't relate to. And so I was reading it in Prabhupada's room, and I was praying a lot to Prabhupada, like, please help me. I just don't understand this. This is making me angry or whatever, right? And I was just being honest with Prabhupada and just expressing the struggle I was having. And I feel that I experienced that in that sincerity that I had of trying to understand, at least bringing my angst to Srila Prabhupada, I felt his mercy come in a new kind of way, and I was able to really digest the entirety of the Srimad Bhagavatam and what its purpose is in my life. And it was just soothing. It was helpful. Prabhupada he's actually such a loving teacher, Acharya, and he will help us with the things that we find difficult to digest. Just like when we go to a doctor to help us with digestive issues, right? They'll give us something to help. So similarly, the great Acharya, the teacher, and then ultimately like Lord Chaitanya, they help, these great personalities help us to digest the more difficult things to digest when we're working our spiritual life. So it's always helpful to stay prayerful as we're studying scripture and to ask for guidance. And it's also okay to sometimes put things on the back burner until we fully understand them, right? So we can, like I said earlier, go towards the part of the Bhagavatam I really love, find something in there that you really can hold on to. And then more and more as time goes by, and if you have that mood, then you'll start to, more and more of it will become clear, and you won't, those things that have bothered you will just like, kind of wash away, and it'll be easy to digest. So we're really grateful to have Srimad Bhagavatam in our life, right? Our best friend. So we'll just do maybe one question or comment. Yes.
I think it was something that Rashika Prabhu said, but the imagery kind of came to my mind that when you see how great the Supreme Lord is, you see everyone on the planet, or you see yourself as an entity, and you kind of explode. You explode yourself, and it's like a scientific method where you see that every cell of your being start to disintegrate, and within is the Lord Supreme. And using that example not only with yourself but with everyone on the planet shows the greatness that Lord Supreme is.
So it's a kind of a meditative thought process, right? It's so. Yeah, so it can help us to understand, like you said, the Supreme within all of us, or all around, and at the same time remembering that it's such a tricky thing because we also retain that individuality, right? So it's like both and. So it's like, yes, we're all part of Krishna's energy, and there's kind of this, we could say we all kind of just merging into that common pool of Krishna's energy. And at the same time, each jiva retains their own personhood, and they have that personal relationship with Krishna. So both things are simultaneously one and different. So we're all parts and parcels of Krishna, and we have that commonality, and we also retain that individuality. So just remember today, as you go about your day, remember what Sanatana Goswami said about Srimad Bhagavatam, being your friend, being a refuge, and being a teacher, and how he said, if you want to feel some emotion for Srimad Bhagavatam, you can remember his phrase, please don't leave me, right? Please don't leave me, Srimad Bhagavatam. So if you think about, sometimes we feel more appreciation when we think something's about to leave, right? Or it's going to leave. Suddenly we go, oh, what would my life be like without this amazing book to fall back on when life is difficult, or anytime, every single part of our life, we have this shelter. So it was helpful for me to remember that, like, oh, don't leave me, like, please stay, and so let me have that relationship. So Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.